So Dr. Claire Weekes was an Australian general practitioner back in the 1960s. Her first book was released in 1962 and it was called Self-Help for Your Nerves. She developed an approach that is often referred to today as the floating technique. The basic premise of Claire Weekes' work was that an individual with an anxiety disorder had gotten caught in a cycle of anxiety that became self-perpetuating as they became anxious of their own anxious feelings. As this cycle of anxiety perpetuated itself and continued in the individual's life, their nervous system would become sensitized, which would result in exaggerated emotions and exaggerated feelings of anxiety. As the person's feelings of anxiety became more emphasized and more exaggerated, this continued the cycle and a person became stuck in what is now called an anxiety disorder. This became so bad with some people that they would develop agoraphobia and would be unable to leave their house. She recognized that when a person developed the anxiety cycle, really what was happening was there were two separate fears occurring in the individual. The first fear was the basic normal anxiety that everybody experiences. And the second fear was the person's reaction to that first anxiety. Most people, when they're experiencing anxiety, it is a normal feeling and they just allow it to arise and they just treat it as a normal feeling. Other people, when they experience anxiety, they consider that feeling something wrong and they will begin to start a cycle of avoidance and trying to suppress that feeling. Over time, as a person does everything they can to avoid feelings of anxiety, to suppress these feelings of anxiety, to run away from these feelings of anxiety, they will develop a sensitized nervous system. They develop a fear of their own fear. Claire Weekes realized this, and her approach to stopping the anxiety cycle was to accept all the feelings that arise and to stop running away from them. Claire Weekes' approach to stopping the anxiety cycle was to allow the feelings to arise, to be with them, and to allow them to flow through the individual without trying to avoid or suppress them. After practicing this for a time, the individual would begin to get glimpses back into their old self, back into their old life, their life free from anxiety. They would start to have periods where the anxiety symptoms were diminished or completely gone. With continued practice, the nervous system would become desensitized and the anxiety symptoms would disappear permanently. Claire Weekes summarized the program as follows: facing the feared situation, accepting the feelings of panic, floating through it, and letting time pass. This is really different from most approaches that you hear when it comes to managing anxiety. Even the word managing refers to doing something to try to control the anxiety, to try to make the anxiety go away or diminish. This approach is the complete opposite. When you are engaged in this floating technique, really what you want to do is you want to ask for more of this feeling. You want to allow the feelings of anxiety to pass through you and to flow out and run themselves out. It's the complete opposite of trying to suppress them and make them go away or trying to manage them. With this approach, you want to allow any feelings that arise, you want to allow them to come up, you want to allow them to flow, and you want to be with them completely. Let them do what they do. Stop running away from them. Really what's happening when you are trying to suppress your feelings, when you're trying to run away from these feelings of anxiety, is you are keeping the anxiety stuck in your body. The energy that you use to try and suppress or get rid of the anxiety is the same energy that is keeping the anxiety trapped. With this approach, it's going to feel like you're letting the anxiety win. It's going to feel like you're letting the anxiety take you over completely. And that's exactly what you're going to do. And paradoxically, counterintuitively, what's going to happen is when you let the anxiety do what it does, flow through you, and stop trying to make it go away, it's going to flow and diminish on its own. True peace lies not in the absence of symptoms, but in their midst. And it's not until you found this peace that you'll find the other peace. And that is the peace that comes once the symptoms have gone. If you're caught in the anxiety cycle, you have developed an obsessive compulsion to resist your feelings of anxiety. It is all that you know. The idea of letting go and letting the feelings of anxiety just flow through you and be there in the midst of all these anxiety-provoking situations is not even in your reality. What's going to happen is, as you begin to practice this, you are going to keep going back into autopilot mode, where you are going to go back into resistance. And you just need to notice when that happens and then come back to the practice. What's very helpful for me is coming back to the Claire Weeks tapes or the Claire Weeks books. Another thing that Claire Weeks says that really stuck with me is that when you walk into a situation where you normally would panic or have anxiety or have a panic attack, don't hope that the panic doesn't come. Hope it does come. It'll be better practice for you. It'll be a good situation for you to practice. As I said before, the peace that you're looking for does not lie in the absence of the symptoms. It lies in their midst. It took me a long time to figure this out. But as long as I'm looking for the absence of symptoms, I'm not really accepting the anxiety. You're not accepting the anxiety if you're looking for the absence of the symptoms. You need to be comfortable in the storm. The only way that a ship is going to find the eye of the hurricane is by going through the storm. In one of the interviews that Claire Weeks did, the interviewer asked Claire Weeks if she still experienced panic attacks at present day. And Claire Weeks responded by saying yes, that she still did experience panic attacks from time to time. To which the interviewer said, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And Claire Weeks responded with something that I think is worth noting, because it showed that she really lived what it is that she wrote about and what she taught in her teachings on healing anxiety. She said, save your sympathy for someone else. I don't need it or want it. What you call a panic attack is merely a few chemicals temporarily out of place in my brain. It is of no significance whatsoever to me. Now, as you're practicing this shit, it takes balls. It takes balls. It feels like you are walking around naked. It feels like you are letting all of your guards down. You're gonna let the feelings of anxiety be there and not do anything to try to make them go away. You're gonna walk into situations completely anxious as fuck and just let that shit be? Yes. And as you continue to practice that, your symptoms of anxiety will diminish and slowly fade into the background. But one last thing you must remember is that progress is not linear. She goes on to say that there's gonna be times when your anxiety might feel as bad as ever. You might be reaching the tipping point where your anxiety is going to be healed. It's not like this with everybody, but a lot of people experience this, where you make progress one day and the next day it feels like your symptoms are worse than ever. I've experienced this myself. If she were to sum up her work in 2 words, the 2 words would be loosen and accept. As you're experiencing these feelings, loosen your body and let them flow. Let them do what they do. Don't resist them. Let them run themselves out. Keep on going. Keep coming back to the material. Keep accepting. Keep floating forward.